Hour 2 Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. The wild card games are off and running in baseball. Playoffs are here. It's into October, so we're tracking both games that are currently ongoing. Of course, the Jays will be in action the next few days, and Twins haven't won a playoff game in a long, long time, almost 20 years. Obviously, we know what happened with the Jays last year. Obviously, we're aware of that. There's a little update up on TSN 4. The Twins off to a quick lead. Not good for Kevin Gausman. But the Grappa will be happy because his scouting report was accurate.
Oh, he had to text me?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, no, he put it in the group chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, he put it in the group chat. He was
Of course. Lewis hit a 2-run home run. Great. Good start. Thanks for coming out. So we'll keep our eye on that. We'll keep you updated throughout the afternoon. We got Mike Johnson coming up here in a moment. You see the TSN Top 50 is slowly starting to be revealed.
I did.
It's coming out.
Have you? I haven't even gone back on my list because I feel like my list is always like the players are there, but I have them ranked differently. Mm-hmm. And then there's I put Bedard at 50. I had Bedard on my list. There's other people that admitted they didn't have.
And he was 48 on the list, right? He was 48 on the official list, which I get it. I'm not arguing against that. I could totally see it. Listen, I didn't have him in mind, but I could see it.
After laying eyes, I've been watching their games and after laying eyes on this kid, it's not that we don't believe he's special, obviously. But for me, I just need verification. I need to see him. McDavid had all this hype. And I remember, Hayes, you were you've been on McDavid since he was 12. I remember you just, this guy is going to be the next one. But I had to lay eyes on it and then judge for myself. I watched this Bedard, he's special.
There's no disputing that, man.
He's going to be, you've been right because you laid eyes on him live, last year or whatever it was. But it's
not just the shot guys. You saw the dish the other night. He can pass it. He can.
Yeah.
He's just damn good. I think there's sometimes you think, he might be a little bit smaller than some of these other guys. Is he going to be able to get around out? He's damn good, man.
Yeah.
That clinic that I watched at the World Juniors out in Halifax, I was like, what? And everyone's like, some of the teams are garbage. Well, Shane Wright was on his team, and a bunch of other guys were too. They weren't getting 9 points a night. They weren't.
No, it's got to be sickening for teams that were at the bottom of the barrel of the league, openly tanking and missed them. Chicago was too. Chicago was clearly tanking, and they ended up getting them. But Anaheim, Arizona. San Jose, Montreal, Arizona, Columbus, all those teams were hanging around and had an opportunity, and he ends up in Chicago. And you assume a player of that, ilk and of that reputation, of that hype, he probably plays in Chicago for 15 years, more than likely. That's it. He'll just be a Chicago Blackhawk, just like Sid. He never left. Alex Ovechkin never left. And Ovi was on the list. He came in at number 32, and you guys were off yesterday. And I went public that I didn't have him in my top 50.
Really?
I did not have Alex Ovechkin in my top 50.
Buddy, I'm not trying to be rude, but that's unforgivable.
Let me explain.
I'm just saying.
I understand that. Listen, and this is not being hot takey. It's that.
Let me just get one guy before you say Dougie Hamilton.
Well, Hamilton is on the list. Hamilton, I think, was 41 or 42.
You've got Dougie Hamilton on your list,
yes,
and not Alex.
I did. Here was my explanation: is that with scoring being up, I think there were 23 guys who scored 40 last year. Scoring 40 is no longer putting you in a category that is, uncharted territory.
Wrong.
Well, okay, you can say that all you want, but I could see Cole Caulfield scoring 40. Is he going to be a top 50 player? No. I could see Alex DeBrincat scoring 40. Is he a top 50 player? I don't think he is. I think Ovi probably scores 40, has 67, 68 points, and he's 38. I think he's going to slow down. I think he already has. And I get it because of who he is, but I think at the end of the year, you'll look back and say there were 50 players that had a bigger impact on the season than Alex Ovechkin. I also don't think they're going to be a very good team.
I don't think
they're going to prop him up that much.
I think that's the craziest thing you've ever said on this show.
Well,
Alex Ovechkin. He just went from 10 or 11 to off your list.
He was 20.
That's
20th last year.
He was 20th last
year. No,
year.
but I'm talking about your list.
Last year I would have had him around 20, probably in the 20s.
Yeah, so he's just off your list.
He's 38.
And you're putting
what
guys
is he?
like Dougie Hamilton on your list over him.
Yes.
I think it's a crazy thought.
Okay.
Well,
Where was he on your list?
I think I had him in the top 20, 30.
That's absurd. That's more absurd. That having Alex Ovechkin still in the top 20 is more ludicrous than me having him outside the top 50.
Let the fans vote. What's more absurd, Ovi in the top 30 or out of the top 50?
No. You didn't say top 30. You said top 20. You said top 20. If you look up your list, if you had him in the top 20.
How about just this? What's dumber? On the list or off the list?
Yeah, but that's bull. Like, because again, you could have him at 51, 54. I'm not saying he's the 138th best player in the league. Someone's got to be on the outside looking in. I
got to find out where I had. I'm actually looking.
So
now
you don't put into like just his shot, how it's that much better than everyone else's in the league, is one-timer off the post.
His one-timer yeah.
You don't take that into account that's a special talent.
That alone, because he scores one-timers, like when the guy
you get 45 of them a year.
I don't. How many goals do you think he's going to score this year?
Buddy, I'm not going to argue with you for 3 hours. Ask MJ if he should be a top 50 player, and I'll rest my case. And on whatever you.
Well, I had him on my list too. I did.
Where'd you have him?
I had him pretty high, actually. I had him 23rd.
Thank you very much.
No
look at that. Look at that. This guy
chance.
is just looking for clickbait.
I'm not.
He's looking for clicks.
It's a private list. I chose to reveal it because we were talking yesterday, Frankie and I.
Put it this way: the guy is the greatest goal scorer in the history of the game.
No question.
But this guy has no respect.
But he's 38 noodles. He's not 28
anymore. He wants Dougie Hamilton on there.
I understand.
Why is Dougie Hamilton the holdup?
I just see him on the list, and I'm like, how could you take Dougie Hamilton?
Number one defenseman on a great team.
I didn't have him on my list, Dougie Hamilton. I didn't. But I did have Ovi high because Ovi does it every year.
I know he does.
And it's impressive.
If
but it's not good enough for this guy.
You guys talk like William Nylander, that this guy scored 40, and then you just said, Hayes, not even 2 minutes ago, well, scoring 40, there was 20.
It's not what it once was. There's 23
exactly.
guys.
So then Nylander, why is he on the list then, scoring 40?
Well, because I think he had 83 points or
87.
something.
He had 87
I mean, that probably accounts for something, does it not?
It does, but I mean, there was a lot of guys who had mid-80 points that maybe they made the list, maybe they didn't.
Maybe they didn't. All right, let's bring him in here. Mike Johnson, our TSN Hockey analyst, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. It's not a legacy list. It's not, as long as you keep playing, you just get to stay on forever because of who you were. Johnny, where did you have Alex Ovechkin on your top 50?
He wasn't on my top 50.
Thank you. Exactly. Mic drop. End of discussion. Explain to these two bozos why that's the right decision.
Well, it's debatable. He's right around it.
Sure.
I think it's important to remember this is supposed to be who are going to be the top 50 players this year coming up.
Exactly.
Right? So, and now I've kind of been wrong, kind of expecting him to slow down faster than I thought he has. Like, he's been really pretty good the last few years, but he slowed down a little bit last year. I don't think his team is going to be quite as good. Team is absolutely locked and loaded to sort of help him chase down this goal scoring record. But I just think that he, as he gets older and the team's not as good, and no doubt he can still shoot it, and he might score 40 again, he might score whatever. But I just think you're talking about top 50, right?
Yeah.
So
what about this guy saying scoring 40 is nothing now?
I never said that. I never.
Said.
No. I said.
What do you think about scoring 40
in the league? Not what it
once
was.
Oh, that's just even better, Johnny.
15 years ago,
please respond to that comment.
Well, I mean, okay,
it's not.
I mean, anyone who would say that scoring 40 is nothing, it's wrong.
I never said nothing.
But if you're on to act like scoring 40 last year is the same as it was in 2001, you'd be right. Didn't Rick Nash win the Rocket with 41 one year?
Yes.
Yeah, 41 or 3, I can't remember. Yeah,
41 with Iggy or whatever. Like, I think tied with two different people, Kovalchuk and Iggy, whatever. So, yes, goals are up. The goals are up from when we played in the deadest of dead puck eras, which is more impressive that you scored as much as you did. Goals are up like 15, 17%. So take your 30. 30 is actually 35. when you add 15% to it, right? Like it's not the same. Goals are up. More 100-point scorer, more 40-goal scorers, more 50-goal scorers, better power plays. The way the game has gone, the talent of the players, it's more people do it now than did it 20 years ago. That's just a fact.
Just a balanced
I just factored
analysis.
It is.
Thank
Listen,
you.
I can respect the analysis because you're right. Like, you put thought into it. Like, it's everybody's opinion. My whole thing is, I'm going to go back to what Johnny said at the starting, and this is why I factored in. The age, this guy has been ageless. Like, yes, the game is slow. Like, he still scores at a rate like he was 28, 29, in a scenario where that's where I'm like, I expect him to be in the scoring lead, goal scoring lead, not point scoring, goal scoring. And that's what he does best, better than anybody in the history of the game.
Yes.
Ever. So that's why, for me, until he takes that step off the cliff, it could be this year, but I've thought for the last 4 or 5 years, okay, this is the year. Now, last year, I factored in his father passing. It was a weird year for him. Mm-hmm. He missed some games. He had a little bit of an injury. I thought, okay, like that was his down year, where I think this year, that whole team is going to be about Ovi scoring because I don't know what else they're going to be. So I could see him getting 40. So in my head, again, I was like, this guy's going to get 40, and we're going to be talking about him chasing Gretzky's record. For me, that's a top 50 player. That was my rationale behind it.
And that's not outlandish by any. Again, let me clarify. I'm not suggesting Ovechkin is number 278 behind Justin Hall. Obviously, he's a great player still.
I don't know what it is. Dougie Hamilton's just
Dougie Hamilton. You got this issue with Dougie Hamilton. I like Douglas Hamilton. He's a good man.
Dude, I like Dougie Hamilton too. He's a good player, but I think the top 50 players in the league not having Ovi on it and Dougie Hamilton on there, it's bugging me.
You know what I think is more of an injustice, and that's a heavy word to use when we're talking about a top 50 list. Injustice. I think Brad Marchand being behind Ovi is absurd.
Brad Marchand not on that list is insane.
Marchand is on it, but he's 38.
I'll tell you what else is insane.
He should be way higher than that.
That kid in Winnipeg, Kyle Connor at 44 is a joke. That guy's just outside a top 10 player in the league, and
Dougie
you heard
Hamilton.
it here first.
Dougie Hamilton.
Wait,
Hamilton's got to be ahead of him.
Hang on.
Dougie Hamilton.
Kyle Connor is not a top 10 player in the league.
No, I said just 20. Outside of it. He's that good of a player.
I'll give you top 20. He's not a top 20 player.
He's not top 20.
In fact, he's a lot like Ovi, but better because he's younger at it now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he's a goal scorer. He's not a particularly great defensive player. He plays on the wing. He does a lot of work on his power play. But he's a great goal scorer. But I don't even know the top 24, let alone defensemen and goaltenders, however you want to mix them in there. Dougie Hamilton.
I just think Kyle Connor is better than 44. I love Kyle Connor.
I could have sworn you just said he's outside the top 10, and I'm like, wait a second.
Yeah, he's not just outside
wait
the top
10.
Off the top of your head, like where I'm looking at it, I had him at 31.
Connor?
Yeah. Like
I wouldn't
like
be surprised if that guy gets 60 goals this year. I'm not kidding you.
No.
Stop it. Dougie Hamilton's got a better chance at 60.
Dude, I'm not trying to – I love Dougie Hamilton.
Yeah.
I'm not doing Dougie Hamilton again today because him on the list and Ovi, insane.
Yeah. Well, listen, obviously you've made it very clear. Dougie Hamilton is not in your top 50.
I might have had him. I might have had him in
the 40s, I think. I had Connor in the 40s.
Here's a question for you guys, and I guarantee you the answer is no, but I took a flyer. I put Clayton Keller on there.
Ooh.
49 Noodles.
Did not do that. Did not do that.
I had him at 48.
Yeah.
I had
Alex Tuck at 50.
I had Bedard at
Keller.
50.
I had Timo Meyer at 50. Yeah. Well, listen, Ovi is still going to score a ton of goals, and he's still going to put up points. Like, there's no disputing that. He's going to be PP1. He's still a machine. He missed some games last year, I think in large part because his father passed away. He's also like a medical marvel. The guy plays every single night. It's just, he's a big dude. His skating, I don't think, is where it was. I think the team struggling will hurt him. Right, and a big part of what made him so great that put him over the top, on top of being the greatest goal scorer of all time, which that alone puts you at the top of the list in perpetuity throughout your career, is the fact that he was so physical. Like he would run you through the boards. He would have double-digit hit nights in his sleep, and I don't think he's going to do that anymore. I don't think he can. So, just because of his name, like Sid, guess what? Sid's not going to be number one. Sid's not in the top 5 anymore. Is that a injustice? He's still Sid, but you got to be realistic.
I'm just going to tell you guys.
Who he is
just going to tell you guys from what you guys just said. Sid shouldn't be on your list either. If you're going to
Sid's still on the list.
Oh, okay.
Sid's still high on the list.
Here's the thing in watching some of these preseason games. Is there a team that we have written off? Like, we're just talking about Washington. Wow, no chance. They're just going to be all about Is there one of these teams we've written off that is a playoff team? Like, is it inconceivable that Washington is not going to make the playoffs? Is that just set in stone?
Their goalie can stop some pucks, but
I think it's more likely than not that they miss.
I agree. I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying, like, there's always that one team where you're like, I didn't, last year I openly admit, and I think we all were wrong. I don't think anybody saw Boston having the greatest season in the history of, we all were like, maybe I could see them missing the playoffs, the injury to Marchand and McAvoy, and, we're all, and not sure with Bergeron and Krejci. You're kind of like, Is Washington the team? It's just like everyone's just like, okay, past their prime. Ovi's 1,000. Backstrom can't move, and Darcy Kemper, can he find his footing there? Like, I don't know if that's the team. Like, I'm trying to scour the league to go, okay, like this looks like a playoff team, that doesn't. Washington is interesting for me because there's still some framework of some players there. It's. I think they're not a playoff team, but I wouldn't be shocked if they had this great season type of thing.
It's possible. I mean, they have talented players that are older, right?
Right.
And you got Kuznetsov, who was pretty vocal in a Russian article this summer. You've read about this, but basically saying he didn't get along at all with the previous coach. So if he can kind of put himself under the spotlight and respond with a very good year, he's a really good difference maker. Tom Wilson can be healthy. I guess you could see it, but the back end, Sandin, Fehervari, Jensen, Van Riemsdyk, Edmondson. I said everyone but John Carlson, right? John Carlson's awesome, of course, but I just don't know. And I like Darcy Kemper. I've actually been bullish on him throughout his career, but I think they would. I think Washington would fall on the teams likely to just miss. I don't think they're going to have 70 points. They probably have 85 or 88.
Yeah,
it's probably not quite enough. I put them in where do you put Winnipeg? What do you think Winnipeg's going to do? I mean, they have a lot of their players returned. They have Hellebuck still under contract. If they finish the season with those guys, will they not be right around it? But I think they probably still miss. Same sort of tranche of the league. St. Louis, Winnipeg, Wash, Nashville. They're all kind of lumped in there.
Should Pittsburgh be in there? Should Pittsburgh not be in there?
That's where I was going to say. I watched them play last night, and going through their roster, Dubas did a really good job in the offseason here in short time, really shoring up kind of their bottom six, their D. Carlson and Letang, they're trying to sort stuff out back there still. About the Ryan Graves, I know people didn't like the contract, but he's a pretty solid player. If you look at their team, they remind me, I would put Pittsburgh ahead of Washington, but I don't know how much more. You know what I mean? And on the cusp of that looks like a playoff team. They missed the playoffs by one game or 1 point last year?
Yeah. Lost
still missed, though. I mean,
everyone remembers. Yeah. But wouldn't they be in that group with Ottawa and Buffalo, kind of battling for the last, maybe spots in the East?
Yeah. I can
maybe
see
Florida, kind of in that grouping. I think the Metro is interesting because it feels like Carolina, New Jersey, and the Rangers are all much better than the rest of the teams.
Yeah.
And it feels like they should really make it. Something strange would have to happen for them not to. And then, so then the rest is to battle for fourth or a wild card spot. And I think Pittsburgh would be the favorite to get that. And maybe Washington falls underneath them. But it's interesting. It's interesting what can happen. I mean, they're still going for it. They're still trying to stay relevant and competitive and have, Alex Ovechkin chase down Gretzky on a good team, not just a team designed to get him goals. And trying to find that balance will be interesting for Spencer Carberry.
Johnny, you just mentioned the Washington Capitals back end. And I think if you talk to people throughout the league regarding the Leafs and their back end, like, is it possible to kind of reshape their back end throughout this season with where they're at as far as the cap and the ability to kind of movement? Like, can you really kind of reshape that decor if you were looking into doing something like that?
No, not reshape. Not unless someone gets hurt, unless you're going to trade William Nylander. Like, the ability to find the money. Oh, you're exactly right. To pay for anybody who's going to reshape it, you can get Luke Schenn back, or a guy like Luke Schenn at the deadline, and he played a really big role. And like, they will do that again 100%. They don't have enough money even to go get a McCabe like they did last year. They just don't have enough money to do that kind of thing. So I would say, unless someone gets hurt, you're sort of riding with the guys you have now, and then you're going to pinch, and pick up depth guys at the deadline, guys like Luke Schenn, and maybe guys who bring a more physical play or whatever it might be. But I don't think so. I think they're sort of committed to this path until next summer, where maybe things open up a little bit more around the league.
Yeah, that seems to be where people look, right?
Yeah, you just look at teams like, I thought Matt Dumba was going to be a guy that was going to be in play for a lot of teams. I've kind of always had a soft spot for him as a player. I haven't looked at his underlying numbers and stuff like that, but I just always thought that he fell out of favor in Mini there. I don't know what happened. I don't know the backstory, but I thought that was a guy that maybe the Leafs would covet. He can move. He plays physical. Can move the puck. That type of scenario. Right-hand shot. Can play in your top four. And we'll see. He's in Arizona this year. Is Arizona a team that
3.9 noodles only 3.9?
Well, that's what I mean. I didn't think. I'm missing something on him. I thought he would be a guy that would be a little bit more coveted with some of these top tier teams that were looking to add to depth of their D, including, the Maple Leafs. They get Klingberg at 4.5. Now Klingberg's a different player. If you turn you can't turn the clock back. Nobody can. But I liked Klingberg in the playoffs against Calgary, and that wasn't that long ago. That was what?
Couple years ago now.
Yeah. I thought he played big. I thought he played physical. He fought Kachuk. There was a little bit more bite to his game. He looked a little bit heavier footed in the game that I saw him play here. And then obviously he's not available right now. But I'd like to see more out of Klingberg to see him settle in here, because I think he's really smooth with the puck. Really smooth.
Yeah, the thing about Klingberg, and you're you don't want to even play this game, but Klingberg makes 4.15, essentially the same as Dumba. Would you rather have Dumba, right shot guy, or Klingberg? Klingberg does some really neat things with the puck when he's on his game. Right. But you don't need a power play quarterback. You did not need a power play quarterback in Toronto. They got Morgan Riley. Say what you want about him. He's out there every year with the second best power play in the league. He's doing something right. So, could you bring in a different element? Now, Dumba's had injury issues, Noodles. He's dropped off, ability to stay healthy. His foot speed's dropped a little bit, so I think maybe there would be that concern. But it's not like Klingberg was coming off a good year. He was arguably one of the worst guys in the league last year.
Analytically, yes.
Analytically speaking. So, I think maybe the ceiling for Klingberg's higher, but different kind of players. But this is the kind of conversation. And listen, Matt Dumba at the deadline, 2-team trade, he becomes $1 million player, half and half, 2 teams each, and maybe he's a guy that they could go get, that kind of player to help try to go deeper in the playoffs this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking earlier about the additions that have been, brought into the fold here, and a lot of the focus has been the guys up front with Reaves and Domi and Bertuzzi. And the opportunity for them to supply entertainment value, a bit of a different feel, different style. We were talking about Reaves last night, where there, were a couple of scrums, and he wasn't involved in them. But the fact that he was there, is that basically what they're hoping for? Is maybe if he's not there, Jack Guy smacks Robertson around. He is there. Maybe Jack Guy decides, I'll take a pass on that. I'd rather not fight tonight.
Maybe.
That's kind of what they're hoping for.
Yeah, that's probably it. And then, Reaves bring whatever intangibles off the ice that he brings, and down between the benches that he's going to be letting Jack I know, and then let Cole Caulfield know. Say, hey, you want to come after Robertson? Guess what? Guess who I get to get a hold of next shift?
Yep.
Cole. And I don't care. You do it to my guy. I'm doing that kind of stuff. Now, he doesn't really do that because he's a pretty honest guy. Like, he's not going to take advantage of a smaller player. But, yeah, I guess in those moments, I mean, listen, training camp is not for Ryan Reaves, obviously, right? Like, even more than it was not for me or for O or for Noodles. Like, it's really not for him. But, we've watched him play in the games, and he's trying to do his job out there, but he's not super noticeable around the puck. And he's not even super noticeable physically, right? Like, he hasn't, rolled anyone over and crushed someone on the forecheck. He's out there doing his job and trying to, find his way. But I just think it's the presence more than the actual on-ice impact is probably going to be as important as whatever he does when he gets out there.
Where do you think Montreal is on the level of concern with Slafkovsky and where he's at?
I think they're aware that they wish he would be further along.
Yes.
But they're also aware that he was a project, even though he was first overall. Now, you might think, well, first overall, how could you take that guy? Like, Shane Wright was supposed to go second. Like, it's not like he's stepped in and lit it right up either. So, they always thought this was a 3 or 4 year exercise to get him to be whatever he's going to end up being. And he's only a quarter way through that, and he only played half a year last year because he missed half the year with injury. So they know he's not come along as quickly as they want him to, but they also know they need more time. Mm-hmm. So they're balancing that. They're being very protective in the media. They never say anything about him bad. They just preach patience. Don't worry about it. But when I watch him play, I just did 3 games in a row for Montreal and around the team. One, he doesn't touch the puck a lot. Like, he doesn't get to the puck. He needs more puck touches every game. That's how he's going to get better. And the ratio of positive puck touches, where he gets it and makes something happen, even if it's something that's hitting the centerman 15 feet away on the tape, to the ratio of negative puck touches, where he turns it over or tries to, can't beat someone or makes the wrong play, he's got to swing that ratio more to positive than it is to negative right now. So he's got work to do, and they know it.
Just send him to the minors. Send him to the minors and let him start and play the whole year there.
I just said that. I was just doing Montreal radio. I just said that. Like, they asked me who might be the biggest surprise not to be in Montreal, and I said, I don't think it's going to happen, but Slafkovsky. If you think he's going to play third line, no power play, 11 minutes,
no way.
And think about how often that guy, whoever it is in any team, not even Slafkovsky, how much that guy, third line winger, 11 minutes, no PP. How often do they have the puck on his stick in a game? Like, time. Would it be 15 seconds, maybe, per game? 15 seconds. That's not enough. And if he's going to play that role, which he might with all the wingers they have in Montreal, then you'd have to consider it. And you don't want the fiasco that it would be to send him down because of where he plays and where he was drafted. But if that's what's going to make him better in a year or two, you're absolutely correct. It would be crappy in the moment, but it would be better in the long run.
And you can't forget with his development, Shane, right? Like, COVID messed with some of these guys' prime development years right there where, in junior, you take that step, you find another level. Like, some of these guys they were scrambling to find a season that year. So they're almost a year behind their progression. Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you have to give them a little bit longer leash, including Shane Wright, because they didn't get to play 82 games in playoffs and go deep in and feel that. Like, these guys were playing a handful of games and they were fighting to find spots and the leagues were shut down. Like, it was like, if you look at, there's going to be about a 2-year window for some players there where a lot of their growth as players, their development was stunted. And it's clear, like, Wright was one of those guys, Slafkovsky, like those guys, I still would give him a longer leash. He's a bigger body, too. He's got to grow into that. Like, he looks like he's heavy out there. Like, he's just a slight, watching him, he's just a step behind the pace of the game because he's a big guy.
I think that's confidence as much as anything, Noodles. Like, I think he's thinking. And you know what it's like when you think and you're not feeling good about yourself. Everything is going faster than you. That's what he looks like because he's unsure of himself. He needs confidence. He needs puck touches. He needs goals, all that stuff. But also, you mentioned their development curve being stunted because of the COVID disruptions. Totally fair. You also wonder how good the evaluation was able to be on these guys. Because the scouts didn't get to see them. Like, Slafkovsky stood out at the Olympics and the World Championships, and that's what really let him be the first overall pick in those two big tournaments that were not against the best players in the world at that time. But he had two great tournaments, and that's what thrust him into being first overall. Mm-hmm. You didn't see a full body work, and he barely scored a goal in Finland. He scored like 6 goals the whole year. So
somebody's paid to figure it out, though, Johnny, and made the right selection. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Let's talk to Ottawa. They just lost 2 first-rounders on waivers. They might. Mistakes are made, and someone has to answer for it, but they're made all the time, all across the league.
Yep, that's for sure. All right, Johnny, we'll leave it there. We'll do it again later in the week.
All right, boys. Ovi, number 51.
Yes.
And also number 8.
Number 51, exactly. I agree. That's where I had him, 51. Thank you, Johnny. Mike Johnson, our TSN Hockey analyst, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Build your next dream Toyota at Maple Toyota and check out Maple Toyota's pre-owned inventory arriving daily. It's time to Toyota. Visit mapletoyota.com. Another thing I announced yesterday, and I want this to be on the record, Vasilevsky's in the top 50, but now that he's injured, I'll replace him with Connor Bedard. So I'll put Bedard in on my list. Okay? I want that to be heard. Bedard is now officially in my wheelhouse.
Or what about Ovi?
I'm not accepting it. You're not accepting
that? No?
I won't even accept. You're not allowed to call Lanesy or anybody with TSN Hockey to change your list.
I just want a little asterisk. I want it on the record that Bedard, I've always believed in his talents. Always believed. So there you go. Yeah, the top 50 continues to roll out. It was 31 through 40 today. Tomorrow will be 21 through 30. And, the Jays are playing. It's getting a little bit dicey down there in Minnesota. Keep you updated on that up on TSN4. The Twins are up 2-0. Gosman just got himself out of a jam, but he's walked, I think, 3 guys already.
Grappler was right. He stinks.
Gosman doesn't look good. It's pitching and defense, and hey, the bats can come alive whenever you want, right? They don't have a hit through a couple of innings.
That's the thing. It's like, okay, if Gosman's average and he gets through 5 and it's got 2 against, go ahead and do something. You're allowed to,
Right, exactly. You can look at the Mariners last year. They were down 8-1. Did they just pack up shop and say we're out of here?
They did not.
They said, fine, we'll score 10 runs if we have to. You only got so much time here. So more on that later this afternoon. Confirm or deny still to come. Bruce Boudreau still to come as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Twins are up 3-0 now. Gosman's getting rocked. They're going to have to get to the bullpen here. Is John Schneider alive? What is happening down there? We're on the air in Toronto, and we're calling out John Schneider because now he's given up. Lewis just hit another home run. That's the second home run of the game.
I'm getting one more guy on base. I'm getting him out. I'm not taking the chance of this guy just being a complete gas can.
Yeah. Get Kikuchi up. You have him on the playoff roster for a reason. Get Bassett up if you have to. Get somebody up to give you 3 or 4 innings because Gosman doesn't have it. He's walked 3 guys. He's given up 2 home runs. That's the 4th hit he's given up, I believe.
Dude, I hate it when the manager leaves somebody in and then they walk the bases loaded and then they give up a grand salami and it's like, couldn't you have just got him out?
Yeah.
I hate it.
I know. You just had a day off. On Sunday was effectively a day off. You've had 2 days off. You have a best 2 out of 3 here. It's 3-0. It's not insurmountable. It's not 12, 13, 14 nothing. It seems pretty evident here. Gosman doesn't have it. He doesn't have the makings of a playoff performer right now, especially in Minnesota. Shout out to the Grappler. The Grappler called it. So this guy's stats against Minnesota are absolutely awful.
But let me ask this, Grappler. Grappler, are you there? If you can hear me, the numbers favored the Twins, but did you think that Gosman was going to go out and be a gas can today? I doubt it.
I didn't think he would go out and be an absolute gas can, but when you look at Gosman's numbers versus the Twins over the past couple seasons compared to the rest of baseball, there's a glaring difference in terms of how bad he's been versus the Twins. So did I think he'd get completely lit up? No, but did I think he'd be his usual dominant self? I wasn't overly confident in that.
Well, and you were accurate in that assessment. Wow. The voice of the Grappler, the voice of reason. How about that? Wow. I never thought I'd say that.
Well, why don't you show some stones and then, I know he's your ace, but maybe don't pitch him game 1 if he gets lit up by the Twins. I don't know.
Well, this is the conundrum. Listen, I'm not going to say this was the wrong play. It was the right play. This is classic retrospective analysis.
But the numbers, everybody says about the numbers, okay, the numbers don't add up here, so what the hell are we doing here?
And that's what I was going to say. This is a team that a lot of times I think is paralyzed by the numbers, right? Like they're so connected to the numbers, they can't get away from them, that they constantly abide by the numbers. And yet this is an example where they decided to bypass them because of, how great Gausman's been all year. But against, quality offenses, his stats have not been great. If he faces a team with a top 5, top 7 offense, he struggled at times. And clearly the Twins are getting after him. And, just seeing it, on my TV down here, it seems like they're kind of getting unhinged a little bit, yelling at the umps. They feel like the strike zone's not going their way. But again, on top of that, regardless of what's happening with Gausman here, Jays don't have a hit. So, the top of the lineup's coming back up again. I guess they have one walk, Kiermaier walked, but you're coming up with Vladdy, you got Bichette, Biggio. Like, those are the guys. Snap out of it. You got to try to find a way to win a ball game here. So we'll keep tracking that throughout the afternoon. Bruce Boudreau coming up. Bruce would be a Blue Jay fan. He seems like he's probably a big Argos fan. The Argos are obviously rock stars right now. Brucey, just a good Toronto boy that supports all the local teams. And Bruce Boudreau will join us in about 20 minutes. But yeah, it's not a good start. Not a good start.
No, but you've got to find a way. And you know what? It's only the third. Mm-hmm. So that's the thing. Like, they can get going. Like,
got a lot of time
left. I'm trying to be positive.
Positive
trying to
Tuesday.
Be positive. That's
positive
exactly.
Tuesday. I think it was positive for the Raptors that they finally got out and started practicing because, a lot of people were talking about the presser yesterday. And I've been reflecting more on it as well. Like, Masai Ujiri just being forthright. Like, we were selfish. Basically, I hated that team last year. And I like that.
But I like when they went to the end. I do too, but I like that he goes to, like, Siakam comes out. He's like, I ain't selfish. I don't know about that.
Exactly.
They probably went down the line, and everyone was like, I don't know who he's talking about. It wasn't me. I'm not selfish.
Right.
So,
and why not?
Who the hell was he talking about?
If you're Siakam, aren't you saying off the record, hey, it was Fred? Like, blame someone else who's not here anymore.
Yeah.
You might as well. But, I'm surprised by that approach. I'm not sure it's going to work necessarily, but I'm not sure Masai cares.
He said the same thing
feelings.
last year. He hated the way they played.
He did, and I appreciate that. Like, I do. I don't know if it'll be the right approach. I don't. I'm not sure it's going to work in a player's era of the NBA. And I think Siakam, he's got his warts. Things have gone awry with him over his career, but he's been a pretty damn good player. And he's their best player, and he loves being a Raptor, and I think that accounts for something, especially in this market. I'm not sure why Siakam has to keep taking shrapnel, I guess is what I'm saying. If you speak in general, I have a great appreciation for that. And he didn't name Siakam directly, but he was asked about Siakam. Then he said, selfish, the team was, and we need to change the culture around here. And it seemed as if it was somewhat of a focused message through Masai and Darko Rajokovic, that it's got to start with Siakam. And that's understandable, too. You guys have been in dressing rooms. If your best player's got to set the tone for the way everything operates. His mood, his attitude, his work ethic, his commitment to a game plan, how he reacts to a coach. So the spotlight's going to be on Siakam more than maybe ever, and that's saying something.
I think the spotlight's going to be on Scotty Barnes. Like, I'm not some secret NBA insider, but I've just talked to some people that hang around there a little bit, and I don't know if he was exactly loved last year by his teammates. So I don't know what he's got to do, turn it around. I don't think he was exactly a gym rat going into year 2. Mm-hmm. So I think a lot of eyes should be on him. Like, he's supposed to be the guy that helped turn this thing around.
I think that's a great point, is that Siakam has been under the microscope, and as a result, Scotty never came up. And even Scotty, it seemed like he was almost aloof to the idea that he was a part of that team last year. He was talking. He's like, yeah, it's selfishness. It sucked the life out of.
But what does he think? He gets a hall pass for being the rookie of the year or something?
Yeah.
Like, no,
like,
you were on
that team too. Yeah, and you didn't pull your weight. He had a down season. Let's call it what it was. He had a season that was well under expectation, and without knowing the exact clarity of the plan with the Raptors moving forward, we all can understand, and we all, I believe, would state it revolves around the development of Scotty Barnes, like first and foremost. And if he doesn't take a step this year, everything else is irrelevant.
Yep.
In terms of the big picture. What happens with Siakam? What happens with Anunoby? Did you pick the right coach? If Scotty Barnes doesn't develop into a superstar, it changes almost everything in terms of what Masai Ujiri could do.
Of course it does.
And that's just a fact. All right, Bruce Boudreau in 20. Confirm or deny in about half an hour. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. All right, today's best bets are powered by FanDuel. Make your picks and assemble a same-game parlay in seconds on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. As we know, baseball playoffs officially have arrived. We got a couple of games tonight on the National League side of things. Arizona, Milwaukee, and Miami is in Philly tonight. And I'm all over the Phillies at home tonight. I like the under in the game. I like Bryce Harper to get a hit. And Zach Wheeler, 5+ Ks on the mound tonight. That is paying plus 276. So a little 3-leg parlay for Phillies Marlins tonight. Today's best bets powered by FanDuel same-game parlays. This NFL season now include passing touchdowns and receptions on the FanDuel Sportsbook app. Please play responsibly. Must be 19+. Physically located in Ontario. Of course, you can bet everything on FanDuel. And we're going to take a look at some of the season-long point totals. I think we'll do that, if not today, over the next couple of days for the NHL.
Sure.
Might be a good idea
for
to do
teams
that
or individuals?
For teams. So, FanDuel will supply it, right? I haven't looked directly at it. I want to go in kind of blind like you guys, and we'll just get an immediate reaction on how we feel about the line. Because the line hits, and generally you're like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, right? That makes sense. But I think there's going to be a number of teams that it'll be really difficult to make a call. Very difficult to make a call, including the 7 Canadian teams, where I would assume the Leafs, they're expected to certainly have 100+ points, Edmonton 100+ points.
Mm-hmm. Would there be 5 teams, Hazy? Like, would that be too much where everyone's read on it was totally off? 5 teams, like teams you thought were going to be garbage that turned out to be really good?
I think that's reasonable. Yeah, that might even be conservative, though. In a team like a 32-team league, there might be 10 teams that can go either way, right? Where you just assume.
Yeah. Could Minnesota pop up and win the West? Something like that where you're like, I didn't see that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like something like that where, St. Louis gets back into it somehow this year.
Yeah.
Or conversely, a team completely falls off that is getting a lot of love naturally. And all of a sudden the wheels just fall off for whatever reason. And, it goes the opposite way. Like, what is Seattle going to be in year 3? They took a big step last year. They had a great season.
Yeah.
They're going to do that again.
1 year and then got in the playoffs.
Yeah. The New York teams, the Islanders. What are the Islanders going to be? No one talks about them, and then they show up and compete for the playoffs every year.
Yeah, they're like that. It's interesting. They're one of those like a tweener team for me. Like I just don't. I could see them missing the playoffs, but I could see that goaltender dragging them, deep into the playoffs too. He might be the best
Russian goaltender. Weren't they in the conference finals against Tampa Bay a couple years ago?
Yeah, they're good. Like
that was with Barry Trotz, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was Trotz. They're structurally strong, but they're hard to play against. They're one of those teams that's really they're not sexy. I think teams. I don't think teams like the Leafs like playing against them because they know they're in one. It's you're gonna have to fight for every inch of ice. Like it's just they're not a freewheeling on a Tuesday in November.
No. Hopefully,
they still make you earn
can help them score a goal because they've had trouble scoring goals the last couple of years.
Yes. Well, that's it. Like a healthy Barzal, a healthy Horvat. That's the best one too they've had up the middle of the ice in a long time.
Yep.
Did you have either one of those guys on your list?
I know I didn't have Horvat. I got to remember if I had Barzal. He was
the only Islander I had was Sorkin, and I think I had him
Sorokin
pretty high.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't think I had Barzal. I don't think I did either. And like, there's a guy. Wouldn't be shocking if if he put up a point a game or more and look great, that's to be expected. He's
he's certainly
more
paid
than
for that.
capable of doing it. Absolutely. All right, final hour coming up. Bruce Boudreau will join us. We'll get to confirm or deny as well. Our best bets brought to you by FanDuel, and our player of the day. The Leaf ticket giveaway is back this season. We're announcing a player of the day. We're putting together a line every single week all year to give away tickets. So tune in to find out who the player of the day is today. That and more still to come. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 soon to be up on TSN 2.